Dad used to say that childhood was like being drunk. Everyone remembers what you did, except you.
Ha! Good one, Dad.
I remember everything.
Adam, thank you for being here and also for bringing little Gracie here.
My pleasure.
I want to start at the very beginning, at the very first scene in which we fly over Gracie's mess, right? Did you shoot that scene at the end or at the beginning? Because like every prop seems to be in there that's being used later on in the film.
It was definitely at the end, and it was a very ambitious shot, probably too ambitious. And I wanted to start the film to make the audience feel claustrophobic, that this is going to be a film that's very dense, and I also wanted all these little clues in there. I mean, the film, the opening montage is I stole the idea from Jean-Pierre Jeunet's film Delicatessen, and Jean-Pierre's a good friend of mine, and I think I mentioned it a while back. I just love that opening where the camera just glides through. And I just thought it would be a perfect way to introduce the audience to stop motion, particularly those who'd never seen stop motion, and to say to the audience right from the very beginning, everything you're about to see is real and handmade. This is not a CGI film. This is all handcrafted. So, and also wanted music that was very rich and nourishing and haunting. So we got a fantastic Australian composer, Elena Katsuchern, and a soprano singer to do all that. So, yeah, it was the most expensive shot in the film. It's the longest shot in the film. It's my version of, what's that Scorsese film?
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas with that one big long. It goes for a minute and a half. Very ambitious, but yeah, we so glad we did it.
I laughed a lot during your movie, but there are also many heartbreaking scenes, and people know that like doing stop motion takes days and weeks just to complete the scene. So how is it for you and your team to go through a heartbreaking scene? Is it like a psychiatrist like on standby if it gets like too dark? Like how is that?
It is. I mean, the crew I made them all read the script before they started the film, so they knew that the narrative was going to be very dark at times, and that we were going to push the boundaries and have scenes that were very challenging and disturbing. But yeah, because the animators are working in slow motion, it's like a slow form of torture. But I think that was an advantage because it gave the animators, who are our actors, a lot of time to really think about the emotion. And one of the animators, Seamus, he animated that entire church burning down and the gay conversion sequence. And by the end of it, I could see that he was physically and mentally depleted and exhausted, and it took a lot out of him. So you've got to be careful too, because as I said, the animators are our actors, and they're working in slow motion. So yeah, tricky.
Yeah, and they're human beings, as it
Yes,
said,
yes.
As it said at the very end of the credits. This movie was made by human beings. Why that line? Is it like a statement against AI, or what was behind that?
Well, originally when I wrote that, it was more of a statement that the film didn't have any CGI in it, and that this was handcrafted. It's just a bit of a throwaway joke, a line. But when we had our first screening at Annecy, a lot of journalists and the audience assumed it was a comment on AI, which I suppose now it is, because AI has suddenly become this presence in the last 18 months, 2 years. And there's a lot of fear, of course, with AI. And I think I'm more fearful as a writer than I am as a stop-motion animator and director. So, yeah, it's just more just to remind the audience that there's so much CGI, we're drowning in digital technology, and let's respect and admire people who use their hands and make things, the craftspeople, the artisans. Because too, in COVID in Australia, we had very long lockdowns, and suddenly everyone took up bread making and knitting and all these handcrafts, and all the art supply stores all started to make so much money because people, for some reason, wanted to use their hands. And that's what our film is fundamentally about. It's a handmade film, and we're celebrating the fingerprints on the clay. We're celebrating that it's done in a slow, traditional way, and would have been quicker to do CGI, but we like to be we like to torture ourselves.
One of the themes in the movie is hoarding, like how you just collect things. How was that on set? Because like you have so many figurines and props. Did it also sometimes feel like you were hoarding things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's times I wished I'd written a film about a minimalist rather than a hoarder. It was overwhelming, the sheer amount of little snail ornaments that we had to make. And we didn't have enough artists. And so we got the camera department to make things. We got, family and friends to volunteer, people coming in on the weekend, we were really worried we weren't going to have enough hoard. But in the end, we had way more than we needed. But most of it now is in a museum in Melbourne, Australia. So we've kept as much of it as we can. And a lot of snails. I never want to see another snail again.
Gilbert and Gracie are being sent to like horrible parents, especially the Christian ones. They're just the worst. You said in other interviews that sometimes you get letters from parents who were angry at you, like, how dare you not making an animation movie for kids? And did some of that feedback got into Memoir of a Snail?
Yeah, look, I think it's been interesting. I've always said that animation is not a genre, it's a medium. And Guillermo del Toro, emphasised that in his Academy Award speech with Pinocchio. And I've been fighting against this idea that animation is for children for 30 years. And even yesterday, I got an email from an angry parent saying, "Your films are not for children." And I said, "Of course, they're rated M. In America, they're rated R. Why are you bringing your children to my films?" I think teenagers, yes, And the irony is my films are taught in schools now all around the world, so they are taught as educational devices, teaching children about difference and the other and bullying and all those sorts of themes and subjects. So it's just I don't blame the parents, because you look at the characters and it looks like a film for children. It looks like Wallace and Gromit. It's the same plasticine, and so it is deceptive. And I think the parents suddenly feel guilty that they've taken their child. And all I can say is read the censorship recommendations. It is rated M. Having said that, this film is far more edgy than all my other films. I really tried to push the emotion in this one and present subject matter that's very challenging, hence the gay conversion scene. There's an orgy, there's attempted suicide, there's a lot of alcoholism, there's a lot of stuff in there that is very adult. Yeah.
Let's focus on some positive feedback. Like, did you get also emails like from people who were like in an emotional down spiral and were thanking you for showing them like, okay, there's always hope.
Absolutely, yeah. Even this morning I got an email from someone who saw my last film, Mary and Max, for the first time, and the film helped him discover that he had autism, and then so he went and got diagnosed. So he cites the film as one of the reasons he became diagnosed. We get emails from people who have cleft palates who say how much the film, it's the first film they've seen that really validates and discusses what it's like to be someone with a cleft palate. So they're all positive. Very rarely do we get anything negative. And that's deliberate, because my films are all, I try to make them life-affirming. I try and tell stories that are not educational but are enlightening and thought-provoking. I really don't want to offend anybody. I really want to make sure the films are nourishing, and that, the best I can hope for is that they laugh. But if they can shed a tear, then that's good. I always say that if you're not an emotional wreck by the end of one of my films, then I've failed.
Death is a big part in your movies, like also in a funny way. You're a fan of funny deaths. So
yeah.
Which one is your favorite death?
I think one of my earliest films, I think it was Uncle, which was my student film, I had a woman who accidentally drank ant poison. Ant poison's very popular in Australia, and people sprinkle this poison everywhere, and it's very sweet, and she accidentally drinks the ant poison. I love funny. Yeah, every year there's online there's a website called the Darwin Awards, and it's a website dedicated to peculiar deaths, and I love that website. And the thing is, these are all real deaths that happen, so it's quite macabre.
Yeah. In film school, you formulated this plan of the trilogy of trilogies that you just want to make like 3 short movies, 3 slightly longer short movies, and 3 features.
Yes.
How do you feel about that now, like at its point of life? Because you have like 2 movies left, a slightly longer short film and a feature film.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, careful what you wish for. It was a very pretentious idea I had of making 9 films, a bit like Tarantino wanting to make, what is it, 10 or 8?
10, yeah.
But yeah, I'm now 52 years of age and I've made 7, and I think I can do 2 more. I've already got an idea for another feature, and I've got plenty of ideas for shorts. It's a nice round number. I think I'm on the OCD spectrum. I love the number 9 because it's 3 threes. I have obsessions of my own, and I'm a bit of a hoarder of words. I collect smells. I collect tastes. I collect children's names. I write poetry. So I'm always writing. I live my life by 3 rules: read, write, draw. Read, write, draw. Repeat. Read, write, draw. So that's my OCD mind working there.
Is it also motivational, like to put as many ideas as possible in one movie because like you have that rule, like that plan?
Yeah, I love watching dense films. I love films that are not so much complicated in terms of the plot and the narrative, but dense in detail and characterization and idiosyncrasies. So when I start writing my scripts, I start with the detail and work backwards. So I'll go through my journals and notebooks and say, all right, I want to have a scene where there's 2 guinea pigs mating. That's going in the film. I want a scene where there's an elderly woman tap dancing naked on a coffee table. That's going in the scene. So it all, they're like ingredients, and then I have to find a way of linking them all together and then getting a balance between the light and the dark, the comedy and the tragedy. So that's what makes them very dense. But also the plot, it sort of eventuates down the track. By the 3rd or 4th draft, there seems to be a plot that's magically appeared by itself. But my editor, Bill, he and I also start paring things back, particularly the dialogue. There's that saying in cinema, show it, don't say it. So we're very mindful of that and trying to get as much of the dialogue removed as possible.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at Gracie real quick, if she's already here. She doesn't have any legs.
No.
That's because like it's very difficult like to have movement in your movies, right?
Yeah. The sad thing is that my films are all low budget. We never have enough money to do what we want to do, so we always have to compromise, and one of the compromises is walking. Walking's very complicated and slow, so we do what's called the Muppet technique, where the character walks on like this without legs. That's happening there. So yeah, very few characters have legs. And the other thing we don't do much of is lip sync. So Grace very rarely talks. It's all voiceover. Yeah.
What happens to all the figurines and props once shooting is done?
Yeah, well, the sad thing is I live in a very small apartment and there's no room for all these things. So a lot of them get recycled. The clay gets melted down. But we do rescue our favourites, and luckily in Melbourne we have a big museum dedicated to cinema, and so they've taken a lot of the props and sets from this film, and there's a 2-year exhibition on right now. So if you come to Australia, come to Melbourne and see the exhibition. But yeah, they don't last very long. They disintegrate, the plasticine dries up, ears fall off. They're a lot of maintenance, but we've kept this little one here.
Very glad. Did you know that in Germany, the Merriam-Max, when it was released, they added the subtitle. Translated, it says, "Two sheep shrink when it rains," which is also a line from the movie.
Yes.
If you had to pick a subtitle for Memoir of a Snail, like from a line of a movie, which one would you pick?
Oh, well, I think the line that gets the biggest laugh, no matter which country we're in, Spain and France, America, the line that gets the biggest laugh is, "I'm older than I look and I look like a testicle."
Put that on a poster. All right. Perfect ending. Thank you so much for this.
Great way to end, yes.
Great way. We'll end with testicles.
Life isn't about looking backwards, Gracie. It's about living forwards. Snails never go back over their trails. Set yourself free.